What's up, guys? Josh Pate here from 24/7 Sports. That is Steve Wiltfong, National Director of Recruiting. You watch it every week. You love it every week. It is the weekly Wiltfong Recruiting Whip Around. Steve, we're here in early November. It's the first week of November. And you and I were talking before we started recording, and I kind of realized people don't know what's happening with the early signing day. You know, it's normally, hey, that third week in December, like it's kind of new concept. But some people think, well, since it's a COVID year, well, there's no way they're doing that, right? They're doing it as far as I can tell, aren't they, Steve?
It's coming and they need to do it, because here's my opinion on the early signing period. I thought it was put in place for prospects that were ready to decide, that wanted to be done with the process, to put their pen to paper and it be over. They don't have to worry about other coaches coming in and trying to flip them. Do we need to be nice to these coaches, even though I'm solid with my decision? And on the flip side, it's good for the college coaches to say, hey, this young man's in. I don't need to continue to babysit him or work on him just in case another school comes in and tries to flip him. And so that hasn't changed, even though these prospects haven't been able to go out and visit. Now we'll see, I think like 80 to 90% of the prospects, it was starting to go that way. We're going to sign. We saw a rise in that the first 2 years of prospect signing in the early signing period. And it's obviously become National Signing Day, and then dessert has become the old National Signing Day as we knew it. Maybe some kids that didn't get out to go see some visits, maybe some kids that didn't get out and get to see these schools will want to wait till January to see, hey, maybe they'll open it up for us and we can take some visits then. So maybe we'll see some less kids sign in hopes of January visits. And there is some chatter in the back. There is some chatter amongst recruits and coaches that they think that they could take some visits in January. Time will tell. But for a lot of these kids, they've made their decisions, and I think we're going to see them sign. And that resource should be there for young men that want to be done with the process.
You and I have talked pretty recently about, the conflicting impressions of how valuable head-to-head wins are on the field when it comes to that recruiting cycle. And we've talked about a bunch of guys who Georgia and Tennessee are going at it for. And we're going to talk this week about Georgia, Florida, Michigan State. And it's a weird year, obviously. And you got a kind of theory that maybe it's never been more important than now to win your games, even aside for just the obvious reasons.
Sure. Obviously, some of these schools have amazing campuses and amazing environments, and there's just an electricity. There's a great atmosphere on your campus. There's so many things you can showcase to recruits while they're on campus that the game sometimes doesn't mean as much. Even if they come and visit and your team takes an L, they still saw X, Y, and Z on their visit and had a tremendous experience and spent time with so many students and like-minded individuals, and it was a like-minded culture, and it was an atmosphere you wanted to play in. The game was irrelevant. But now we're in COVID season. You're not getting any of that stuff of getting caught up in the environment of a visit. So the product you put on the field is, I think, more than ever relevant in these recruitments. And so you look at the Tennessee-Georgia game earlier in the year. Marius Mims' decision is coming down the stretch between those two schools. He picks Georgia after the ballgame. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, a back and forth slobber knocker on the recruiting trail for the coveted defensive tackle. He just committed to Georgia at the end of October. Maybe Tennessee will still pull out a Nyland Green or Small Munden, but losing in that fashion hurts you when then you can't get them to your campus and get them around your coaches and say, hey, here's what we're building. And, it sucks that we lost that ball game, but, we're not going to lose that ball game next year. So take this Michigan State game on Saturday. Michigan, the heavy favorite on the 24/7 Sports Crystal Ball for one of the state's best players, one of the Midwest's best two-way prospects in the trenches, in Rayshawn Benny. Coming out of that ball game, Michigan State is now the 24/7 Sports Crystal Ball for favorite for Rayshawn Benny, including my forecast. He's going to announce his college decision on CBS Sports HQ next week. And I like the Spartans here for Benny. I think that trajectory of the program, all of a sudden at Michigan State, you win a ball game like that under Mel Tucker, it gives you a lot of juice. And I think that the likability that Michigan State's new coaching staff has in that Detroit area is helping them with Rayshawn Benny as well. And that game is proof to Rayshawn Benny that, hey, this is a program that's going to be competitive. And meanwhile, it also brings up some questions about the Michigan program, whether that's fair or unfair. It does, and now Rayshon Benny is considered a Michigan State lean. You also have Andrell Anthony, a receiver committed to Michigan right now. There's some rumors floating around that he's looking around. I know Michigan State hasn't stopped recruiting him. He's from East Lansing. He's a guy that some teams coveted as a defensive back. He's a talented receiver. So win your games, win your rivalry games this year more than ever, because if you don't, it may cost you a blue chipper or two or a coveted recruit down the stretch, which takes us into this Florida-Georgia game this weekend, which obviously is one of the two biggest games being played this Saturday alongside Notre Dame Clemson. And you have a couple blue chippers in Terrion Arnold and Xavier Sori, who are Florida-Georgia battles. Alabama's in it for both of them as well, but I think Florida and Georgia are in the best position for those young men. I like Georgia for Sori. I like Florida for Arnold. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up playing together, though. Those guys are great friends. And I talked to Terrion Arnold this week, and he's going to be locked into that game, and he's excited to watch it. It's a big opportunity for Florida. I think for them to get a win that they haven't had in a while to prove the trajectory of their program being more than we're a New Year's Six Bowl team. We are a legitimate playoff contender. In Georgia, they've been there. They just want to keep that momentum rolling. They've won the majority of their head-to-heads with Florida on the trail. They haven't won them all. Florida's won a handful, but it's mainly favored Georgia in head-to-heads with Florida on the trail. And these games keep that momentum rolling when you're recruiting against each other for touted recruits.
So last week, it was all about Quinn Ewers here, the 2022 major quarterback prospect, top-rated player, five-star quarterback out of the state of Texas, decommits from Texas, Steve. And at the time, we were talking about Ohio State. So now a week later, let's reset the picture. Are you still feeling the same way that you were a week ago about the future of Quinn Ewers' recruitment?
Yeah, I love the Buckeyes still for Quinn Ewers, the number one overall prospect in the top 247 player rankings. I think the decision is going to come soon. I don't have a date for you, but I wouldn't be surprised. I expect something to be done soon with Quinn Ewers planting his second flag in his recruitment, and all the buzz is around Ohio State and Columbus. I know Auburn, Alabama, Oklahoma were schools that he had good relationships with throughout the process. There was a bit of intrigue with Clemson as well, but just talking to a lot of prospects, 2022 Ohio State targets and people with knowledge of the recruitment still like the Buckeyes. And I think that a decision is going to come soon for Quinn Ewers.
Steve Wiltfong, keep it locked on the Wiltfong Recruiting Whip Around every week, and keep it locked on 247sports.com all day, every day for continuous recruiting coverage. Steve, I'll see you next week, man.
Take care, y'all.